Kristen, and you're listening to Podcast and Amplify, a podcast for women entrepreneurs who want to amplify their voice and brand through podcasting and grow a wildly successful business. I'm the executive producer and host of 2 shows and an entrepreneur, and I love helping women grow their visibility, mindset, and business to the next level. Each week, I share tips on how to launch and leverage your podcast, and I'm bringing on the very best business leaders to give you advice on how to build your business empire. Let's amplify your voice and business. Hey there, welcome back to Podcast and Amplify. I'm your host, Kristen, and today we're talking about how to magnetize people to your podcast. Okay, let's dive in. I know that creating an audience full of your soul listeners is so important to you. And I know that starting a podcast is one thing, but attracting those soul listeners, the people that you know that you can help with your services or your product, is one of the most important things about starting a podcast. So the first hack I have for really magnetizing those people and attracting them to you is choosing topics that really light you up. So that excited energy that you put out there, it's what's like infectious for people, right? It's what's going to get them so excited about listening to your show. So the more excited you are about your topic, the more excited your audience will be, and they will show up every week for that energy, for that vibe of like, this person is lit up around what she's talking about. We've all experienced it when we've listened to someone speak about something they just feel really passionate about. That energy rubs off. It's almost like we want a little taste of that, or we're hoping a little bit of that magic rubs off on us. And so choose topics for your podcast that light you up. Anytime I've done a podcast episode where I kind of felt meh about it, like it was just okay. But the ones where I felt like so energized, so jazzed, so like, oh, this is me. This is the thing I want to talk about, I want to share with people. Those episodes are not only some of my best episodes, they are some of my most listened to episodes. So your energy really does matter in terms of attracting people to you and your podcast. Okay, the second hack is one of my favorite things, is to be curious. So hear me out on this. When your audience senses that curious energy, when they sense you leaning into your guests, your listeners are going to do the exact same thing. So the more that we can be curious about what our guests have to say, and we really, ask those probing questions, we dig a little bit more, we are taking our listeners on that same journey. And that's going to spark their curiosity as well. So they're going to really lean into this episode and be curious about, oh, what is the answer? I want more of that. Or you're asking a question that, oh, I didn't even think about that. I wonder what the answer is. Or if you're doing solo shows, you can still create that curious energy. You've thought about your topic that you're discussing in depth, and you were curious when you created this content. You're not just putting out like fluff, because you got curious, and that's going to help you come up with compelling content that's going to go a little bit deeper and pique your audience's curiosity as well, and get them to want to come back and listen to you because, this person, they really are looking for answers. They're looking to provide answers. They're looking to give a lot of value. I think being curious is a little bit underestimated in terms of drawing people to you, but it really does have that ability to get your audience to feed off of that and draw them in. I'm a naturally curious person, so it's really easy for me to sort of lean into my guests and uncover more and ask the questions that I think my listeners would want to know. Like, what are their burning questions? Those are the questions that I'm asking, or those are the questions that I'm asking myself to come up with an episode like this one. I'm thinking about what do my listeners who haven't started a podcast yet or want to start a podcast, what are they concerned about? And attracting people to you, I think, is a big concern. But I had to get curious about what are my listeners interested in? How can I offer and dig in and provide some valuable tips for today's episode, as an example? So, those are my two hacks for magnetizing people to your podcast. Let me know if either of these resonated with you, if they were things that you thought of, or maybe they weren't. I'm super curious. You can hit me up over on Instagram, message me, and I would love to know. Also, if you're looking for help with your podcast, there are a few ways that you can work with me, and I will link them in the show notes. I'd love to work with you to help you come up with a podcast that is aligned with you. It's a heart-centered podcast. It attracts your soul listeners. That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. And I'd love to help you do that. I will leave a link in the show notes for my Overwhelmed to Aligned intensive, where that's exactly what we do, is we help you build that foundation to create that kind of podcast. So thank you so much for listening to today's show. I love sharing this information with you, and I'm so happy that you're here. If you know of anyone who this episode would be valuable for, please share it with them. And as always, rating and reviewing really helps to grow this show, and I really appreciate it. All right, that's all I have for this week. I will see you next week. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe so you don't miss a show. And rating and reviewing this podcast is the best way to help support us. Always remember, your voice and what you have to offer is needed in the world. Until next week, take care.